Well, hello everybody, and this is Radio Entrepreneurs, and I'm glad to say that we are continuing to stream stories through this very changing economy, how people are dealing with this economy, how entrepreneurs are finding ways to do business, stay in business, and that's critical to all of us. You know, Radio Entrepreneurs is a very safe methodology for hearing what's being done, in real time, so to speak, because we are speaking to not academics, but entrepreneurs and leaders. Our next guest, well, before our next guest, I just want to remind everybody, my co-host for this segment is the fabulous Marc Z from Marc Z Legal Staffing. Welcome, Marc.
Thank you, Jeff. Great, excited to be here, and great working with you as always.
Well, you know, I was so excited for our guest, I almost forgot you, Marc. That's unheard of. Our next guest, Elizabeth Foley, a shareholder at Rich May Law. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Jeffrey, thank you. And thank you, Marc. It's a pleasure to be with both of you today.
Thank you for coming.
We're going to talk about all my employees and everybody else's employees, mandatory COVID testing for employees. I think this is a hot topic for people.
Jeffrey, it absolutely is. And to assist you, my background, I've been practicing law for 30 years, and I spent approximately 10 years as an assistant attorney general in the Office of Attorney General here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and specialized in healthcare fraud. I also spent 5 years managing a fraud unit at Blue Cross Blue Shield, and now in private practice for over 10 years. I navigate my clients through myriad issues relative to healthcare fraud issues, coding and billing, compliance, and also representing healthcare facilities, health-related entities, and now at Rich May, expanding that relative to where we find ourselves in our new reality, relative to the onset of the coronavirus. And now where we see ourselves, fortunately, with having at least 2 vaccines by Moderna and Pfizer that are being rolled out and implemented. And as we can all appreciate, many of us have been performing our job functions from home. And I can tell you, for one, I miss the office setting. I miss the interaction with my colleagues, et cetera, and my clients. And so clients are saying to me, Elizabeth, with the new vaccine, we're anticipating, we know our lifestyle may change, our business lifestyle may change, but can we mandate the new vaccinations? And the short answer to that is federal law does not prevent an employer from mandating a vaccination program. It's not a violation of employment law. Now, having said that, obviously in the field of law, as Marc well knows, there are many, many exemptions, 2 of which are employers must allow and provide for accommodations for their employees when the employees have a valid underlying disability or they're seeking a religious exemption. So what comes into play is, and it's fascinating, this particular case law pursuant to which employers and states may mandate a vaccination program, obviously in the interest of public health, dates back to 1905, and it's a Massachusetts case, Jacobson v. United States, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court. And relative to that particular case, which is really our ground base, that case held that the state could implement a mandatory vaccination program for, at the time, smallpox. So it's just really fascinating when you look at that, and then you see the expansion, because obviously in 1905, we didn't have Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which is the religious exemption, nor did we have ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. So presently, while employers may mandate that vaccination program for its employee pool, they have to make sure that if an employee, again, has a valid disability ground or a valid religious ground pursuant to which that they do not want to participate in the vaccination program, the employees must, if they deem those exemptions to be valid, they must implement an accommodation.
So
Now,
Elizabeth, let me ask you something. So I'm an attorney. I'm returning to your firm. And your firm has implemented a vaccination policy. What type of accommodation, or first of all, what kind of disability would, especially with how crucial a vaccine is going to enable me to work with others. A vaccine is going to prevent me having further health issues. So what is an example of a disability that would prevent somebody from having a vaccination? So there won't be a domino effect. And the other thing is, what type of accommodation would you make for such a person?
And then I have a follow-up question.
sure. So Mark, I'll take your question first. Excellent question. And as you can appreciate, it's all nuanced because it's so, no pun intended, it's so novel. So relative to that disability, what the employer must do, as he or she must do in every situation faced with an ADA query, is what is the underlying medical condition? How does that tie into the vaccination program? Now, because the coronavirus vaccination is so new, as we all know, this really did travel at warp speed. Generally, it can take up
Right.
to years, and sometimes you can never identify a vaccination for conditions such as HIV. We've yet to actually identify one. So in this situation, you have to explore with that employee, what is your medical condition? Now, let's just say hypothetically, they have a significant immunocompromised medical condition. And some studies have shown, and I'm not saying that this is true, but we're doing a hypothetical, that an individual with that type of immunocompromised underlying condition can have a very deleterious impact by the vaccination, as proven by certain gold standard studies. And as you can appreciate, Mark and Jeffrey, we don't have that yet. So
Right.
what does the employer do? The employer, for an accommodation, ask the employee to wear a mask, separate that employee, possibly have that employee continue to remote from home. And Jeffrey, I know you want to get in your question, so I'll tie
Well,
this
before
in.
we're done, I want to get it in.
Okay, absolutely. What I'm recommending that my clients do is not implement a so-called quote unquote mandatory program just yet. Why? Because the vaccinations that we have presently are all under what's referred to as an EUA, Emergency Use Authorization. And that is identified and approved by the FDA. We believe that potentially maybe in March, there will be a full authorization. And if and when that occurs, that will give the employers greater strength and more information to be able to mandate that vaccination program. Again, I'm recommending educate your employees. Inform the employees that there's a whole host of possibilities that we can do and implement for those employees short of the mandatory program just yet, because we're under an EUA.
Interesting.
Well, my question, you only have 2 minutes this time. And I know for someone who likes to be thorough like you, I apologize, but you're going to have to work to our timetable.
Absolutely.
I understand what you're explaining is you're trying to create a logic to a situation that can be very emotional to people. And I'm a management consultant, so I see the world a little bit differently than an attorney on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Culture beats strategy, they say in business. So you have an organization and your workforce has gone home for 10 months to work at home. A lot of pressure on entrepreneurs. They don't like their employees always at home. They want to manage their employees. They're having a lot of trouble managing them. keeping them accountable, setting goals. So with the vaccine, a lot of employers would probably say, I don't mind a more of a flex schedule, but I'm moving to a compromised, more balanced schedule with my employees again. Well, you probably have that in a law firm. But, there's no, we're talking about human beings. There's phobias and there's people who follow fake news. So if you have someone who has a phobia, and I'm not discounting phobias, I think they're real for those people, obsessive compulsiveness, worried about, germs, these people were productive, but these are critical employees. You don't want to lose them.
Correct.
You don't want to,
Right.
you don't want to lose them, because if you lose them, you could destroy the whole fabric of your organization. So these people don't fall into the sort of category you're saying of, having special health interests. They might say, I don't want to be the first one on this list.
Yes.
I want to wait 2 years. I don't know if it's true. I don't believe in this vaccine. I never believed in the virus. I don't want to go in public. I want to stay home. What do you do? What do you do?
Jeffrey, a 2-minute answer for you is you have to decide, how are you as an employer, as the head of your company? What's your culture? How are you going to treat your employees? Because
hard.
it's so hard. And again, I'm always trying to get to the answer, which is yes, for my business clients. And if that employee just says, I'm anti-vaccination, I'm not doing it. Well, you as an employer can say, all right, well, what's the risk benefit here? Do I need to do it? I need to get the workforce back, or get them back more than 50% of the time. This individual is just saying that they're uncomfortable with it. You have to make that tough decision. Because they're not going to qualify if it's just a matter of, I need to wait for this.
Now, we're not doing a webinar. I wish we could. And then there's the whole thing of, if you push an employee too hard, there's, employee gets an attorney. There's always an attorney who wants to make a fight. For the entrepreneur, I think we're heading into new, uncharted,
Yes.
ambiguous territories that are going to be very difficult to deal with, because it's going to be hard to apply a law to something that's an emotional issue for people.
Absolutely. And if I may, let me give you an example. Obviously, hospitals, they have a compulsory vaccination program. In Massachusetts, we do. So employees must have a flu vaccine and various vaccinations. Now, they can decide that they don't want to do that. They don't want to participate in that. If so, they must sign what's called a declination. And that declination lays out all of the risks, benefits, etc. So the entrepreneur who really is stuck in the middle, he or she may say to themselves, what do I do? This is so new right now. I want to roll out the mandatory vaccination program. Some of my employees are not going along with it. Jeffrey, I know I'm going over my 2 minutes, but on that, you may want to think about the declination that hospitals have and that they implement and employ.
Can I, Jeff, can I just say one quick, this will be 10 seconds. Is there a difference between, because I know you have federal and state laws, and that's great about, federal, but would the state potentially have a conflict with that?
That's not 10 seconds. That's a question.
Can you answer in 10 seconds?
Oh, now you're really challenging.
No.
We don't.
We're gonna have
We'll do a sequel. Can I tell you something? We'll do a sequel.
have to invite you back. Boy,
Yes,
oh
have
boy,
Elizabeth
we're talking
back on.
to Elizabeth.
I would love to come back.
We're
Okay,
talking
good.
to Elizabeth Foley, shareholder at Rich May Law, who's finally been let out of the bag of being quarantined for 10 months and is just so exciting to talk to. The lack of social content has been very good for this interview, Elizabeth. Thank you. And this whole topic, this is not something you're going to solve today. You know that. This is something that has to be discussed and looked at carefully, because entrepreneurs, the last thing they need right now is a culture problem or a litigation.
Absolutely. They spend their years developing their organization, and it's all about the people. We all know that. And so again, employers, work with your employee team, seek out counsel that's going to listen to you and listen, because every case is fact specific.
Yes. Elizabeth, if someone wants to find you, how would they do that?
They can find me at efoley@richmaylaw.com. And I'm also on the internet. If you Google my name, Elizabeth Foley, Rich May.
Mark Z, where can we find you?
Well, first of all, thank you, Elizabeth, for being on the show. You're very enlightening and gave some terrific information to our listeners. Just Google Marc Z, M-A-R-C, the letter Z, or marczlegal.com or 617-338-1300.
Great story, guys. Look forward to talking about it throughout 2021. I know it's going to go on. Elizabeth, a pleasure meeting with you.
Pleasure meeting you, Jeffrey and Mark. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Mark, as always, it's been your pleasure.
Always. Your honor is my honor.
Remind everybody, this is Radio Entrepreneurs.